Hello, everyone, and welcome to Configure, Don't Customize, presented by Marion of JSMpros. My name is Scott Labrie, and I'm the head of marketing here at Appsian. And I would like to thank everyone for joining today's PeopleSoft Innovation Summit. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Everyone is on mute. The session will be recorded and will be posted to the registration page that everybody registered for their sessions on, along with posted to the PSFTSummit YouTube channel, where our content from our September conference and then, of course, this conference, all those sessions will be posted there for free for on-demand viewing. The session today is 60 minutes, and we will have some time for a Q&A, so I have no doubt that Jim wouldn't mind answering everyone's questions, so please feel free to put those in the question section of the control panel. And with that, I can go ahead and turn things over to Jim to begin today's presentation. Jim?
Hey, thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. So as Scott mentioned, today we're going to talk about configuration, replacing customizations with configuration. So before we get started, though, for those I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Marion. I've been in the PeopleSoft community for roughly 2 decades. So you may have read some of our books, you may have seen us on YouTube, perhaps read some of our blog posts, or perhaps even met us at a conference or two. I started my PeopleSoft career as a customer working in a financials implementation. And after about 10 years, I had the opportunity to go to work for Oracle. And that was a fantastic, amazing 10 years with Oracle. But today, we offer People Tools training that is live virtual from the studio where you see me today. We also record a lot of our training and make that available on demand as well for you to train whenever and wherever and on your own time. Now, today, though, I want to talk about a couple of configuration options so that we can use to replace customizations. Those would be Page and Field Configurator, event mapping. There might be some overlap between those two, so we'll talk about that and talk about when should you use one over the other. I want to talk about Dropzones, how do Dropzones perhaps fit in with event mapping, maybe perhaps show you an example or two there as well, combining the two, event mapping and Dropzones. And then something new for 858, it's the App Engine Action plugin. So I have a quick demo of that as well for you. Once you've mastered event mapping, though, you'll take a look at App Engine Action plugins and you'll go, oh, that's easy. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at a Page and Field Configurator scenario. So let's see. Let's get signed in and let's see. What might we want to do? Well, Page and Field Configurator, first off, what does it let you do? It lets you hide fields. It lets you change labels, change default values. Mark field is display only. Oh, and today also allows you to mask fields. Let's see, anything else? You know what? We'll take a look when we get into Page Field Configurator. You'll see all the checkboxes and you can see what it will do. So we need a scenario. Okay, well, let's think for a minute. It allows you to hide fields. Oh, I have a question. Does it allow you to hide fields based on security, permissions, perhaps? One of the things that we've had in PeopleSoft forever as well, the ability to access or not access, grant access to a particular component based on a user's membership. For example, I'm going to go to job data here. Job data happens to be one of the most important components in the HR system, telling a few people everything about an employee's relationship and telling everybody a few things. Oh, wait, just kidding. Don't you wish that you could grant people access to job data, everybody, or not everybody, a significant number of people, so they could learn just a couple of things, because it seems everybody needs to know something out of job data, but very few people need to know everything about job data. So how might we do that? Well, with security, we've always been able to protect access to job data, period. Do you get access to job data or not? And then we have been able to determine, once you get into job data, which pages can you view? And so I thought, well, one of the things that we've always wished we had and the ability to do is perhaps hide a particular field. Like, for example, let's look at earnings distribution. I can see this person makes $2,000 monthly, almost $3,000 a month, USD. That's kind of confidential, don't you think? Wouldn't it be nice if we could hide just that field from particular people, maybe perhaps give access to the HR administrator and the comp administrator, but not everybody else? Can you do that? Good question. While we're here and we're talking about configuration, before I go any further, before we go into figuring out how would you do that using Page and Field Configurator, uh, let me just quickly talk to you about configuration options that have been in PeopleTools for a very long time. I mean, for example, anybody still using PeopleTools 8.5, what is it, 8.50, 8.51? Going way back, right? What options did we have for configuration back then? Well, one of my favorites is the related actions, or another one is related content. For example, this is one that I like to show, is the ability to bring content from other systems, bring content from other components into the current component context, what we might call an enterprise mashup, so that we can see information that maybe perhaps, well, in this case, what we're doing is we're actually seeing information about this component, but in a graphical visual manner so that I can interpret and understand that data. This is related content. This is a configuration option that's been in PeopleSoft for, wow, at least 10 years. Related actions is another one that allows you to perhaps drill from one transaction to another. But anyways, let's go back to that job data scenario. You know what? Let's look at a different one. Let's look at KU0001, KU001, KU001. I don't know, 21,000 a month. I think that's probably a high income earner there. See, I don't know, maybe not to you. To me, that seems like a lot on a monthly basis. So that seems like a salary we probably need to be protecting. So how might we do that using Page and Field Configurator? You know what? Let's just protect all salaries. So in a new window, let's navigate into, let's go to Enterprise Components, and then Page Field Configuration, Page and Field Configurator. Now, Page and Field Configurator is part of Enterprise Components. It is not part of PeopleTools. Why do I say that? Because you might update from early versions of a 9.2 PeopleSoft application to PeopleTools 8.58 and not have Page and Field Configurator. Or you might have Page and Field Configurator, but it looks different than my Page and Field Configurator. Why? Because Page and Field Configurator is delivered with PUM images, not with tools updates. Okay, so first thing I need to do is find my component. This is job data. And let's see, I actually already have some configurations out here. I've got one for standard, one for masking. Masking is a newer feature in Page and Field Configurator. We'll cover that too. Okay, so let's see. It's asking me to select a field. Let's do that. Let's select our fields. They are on the job earnings distribution page. Notice this is a list of, wow, a dozen pages. Did you know there were a dozen pages in job data? Apparently there are, and one of them is called job earnings distribution. That's the one we want. And okay, let's click the search button. I see there are 44 fields. Let's view them all. And let's look for comp rate, compensation rate. Oh, there it is. Awesome. Wait, it says there are two of them. Oh dear. Oh no. Which one is it? Is it the job earns dist comp rate? Or is it the job comp rate? Boy, I don't know. How would you find out? Well, as a developer, I could open this page in App Designer and right click and double click, view properties, know exactly which record and field it is. But here's the thing, Page and Field Configurator was created for functional users. It was created by the financials development team for functional users to be able to configure the applications without developer assistance. Good luck. No. Okay, seriously, how can you and I, perhaps as a functional user, figure this out? Well, there are some plugins, there's some Chrome plugins for PeopleSoft that we can use, different inspector tools that will help us identify what's the ID of this. In fact, PeopleSoft Test Framework, PTF, has a little finder there that you can use to find the details about an item and find the ID. But without those, in the absence of those, I can just inspect the HTML and I can see that it says job_comp rate, job_comp rate. Now, this is not perfect. It's not fail-safe. It's not better than App Designer, but it is a step towards App Designer. I might do this first, and then if I don't find it here, guess I have to go to App Designer to figure it out. But I can see here it says it is the comp rate that's part of job. Okay, job comp rate, awesome. And in the newer versions of Page and Field Configurator, I can select both, two fields at the same time. In fact, multiple fields at the same time, whereas the older versions, you would have to insert a row in the grid behind the dialog here. And then you would have to press the select fields button every single time. Fortunately, we can now just check off a bunch of fields at once. press the OK button, and then we can configure those. What can we do? Modify the label. You don't like the label, you don't want to say compensation rate, you want to say something else. We can hide the field. That's what we want to do right here, hide the field. We can disable entry, which means mark it as display only. We can mark it as required. Interesting. When it marks it as required, does it put an asterisk next to it? Good question. Why don't you try it out and find out? Does it actually mark the field as required at the application designer level? No. No, in fact, nothing I'm doing here changes application designer. This is kind of interesting. I mean, any of you use the chart field config program? Wow, chart field config makes some serious changes to PeopleTools metadata, doesn't it? This is not chart field config. This is runtime people code injection that makes the change at runtime, meaning the PeopleSoft metadata remains unchanged. That's the point of it. That way, when you do a compare between Oracle delivered to Oracle delivered, it says change, no asterisk. That's the point. Okay, so we're going to hide these fields. We'll mark the save button. We'll press the refresh button. Wait, you know what? If I press the refresh button normally, it would take me back to the search page, wouldn't it? I'd have to search for a row. Then it would, I'd have to go to the earnings distribution page. Don't you just get annoyed by that constant? Like, I want to test this page right here. Can I just hit the refresh button and stay right here? So we created what we call a bookmarklet. It's a little bookmark here. You can find it on our blog. Just search for the word refresh-able. Is that a word? It is now. I added it to my dictionary. Refresh-able. Refreshable, look for that on our blog, and it will give you a link that you can click whenever you're on any PeopleSoft page, and it'll take the keys from the current component, move them into the URL, as well as the current page that you're viewing. Oh, interesting, it didn't apply. Why not? Because it's a little bit more effort than that. We can't just check the boxes. We have to go to Map to Portal Registry and determine which content reference do we want this to apply to. Interesting. When you're creating Page and Field Configurator configurations, you create them at the component level, but they don't apply to components. Interesting. They apply to content references. Why is that? Because Page and Field Configurator is really configurable event mapping. And event mapping, it doesn't apply to components either. It applies to content references. Now, what is a content reference? It's a menu component combination. That's what we see here. We see two different menus. We have the Workforce Admin GBL. And what is this one? Duplicate holder or something like that? It's another menu. Which one do I want? Hey, maybe you want both. I don't know. I'm going to press the apply configuration. It says configuration mapped to component events. That sounds a lot like event mapping, doesn't it? Oh, because it is. Okay, so let's press the OK button, and I see that it is. Let's refresh. And there it is. There it's not. There it is not. It is gone. Perfect, awesome. So some people ask the question, hey, can't you make standard hours and the other items jump up to take their place? No, this is classic. And classic design is what you see as mostly what you get design, meaning in App Designer, you drag and drop and you create, basically you're creating an HTML table or a grid as to placement of items. And this right here, this is in a different row in the grid. So no, App Designer or PeopleSoft is not going to take it and move it up in the grid. That's a key difference between Classic and Fluid. Fluid, yes, it would move that content. Classic, no, it's not going to move the content. Okay, so we don't have time for me to show it to you. It's something we covered in great detail in our PeopleTools training classes, such as our in our Delta class, where we cover Page and Field Configurator. In fact, all of these configuration alternatives. But I do want to point it out to you, and that is that not only can we just hide these things globally, we can also do it on a per role basis. Now, I want to caution you. You notice that it says selected users, selected roles with users. The older versions of Enterprise of Page and Field Configurator primarily focused on users. That scares me. I don't want to be maintaining that metadata. I mean, think about it this way. Let's say that you create a configuration for a user. Well, why'd you create it for that user? Probably because they asked and because it made sense. But here's the thing about users. They move. They get promoted, they transfer, demoted, leave. Do you want to go through every single one of those configurations, find the configuration that point to a particular user, and update them? Well, maybe you do, but I don't. So I don't want to apply configurations by users. I want to apply them by role. And that's my caution for you. Make sure you apply them by role. Okay, let's see. You can apply them at the header level, sequence level. You can also have data-driven criteria to determine what to hide, show, etc. Oh, interesting thing. The other thing I should point out here about Page and Field Configurator, It only works off of the, well, yeah, it only works off the load events. So if you were to look at a people code events flowchart, usually a people code events flowchart shows the loading events at the top of the flowchart, and then it has the user interaction events at the bottom. And the loading events at the top, that's the component pre-build, row init, post-build, page activate. Page and Field Configurator runs on those events. It does not run on field change. So let's say that, for example, you have chosen to hide a field. But because of the logic that exists on the page, PeopleSoft, or the people code behind the page, says, when a user changes this value, show this field. When a user changes it to another value, hide this field. That's Oracle delivered people code. That's Oracle delivered logic. Page and Field Configurator is not going to help you with that logic. And so I know at this point right here, because there's a bit of overlap, and we're going to see a little bit more overlap when we look at data masking, and you're thinking, there's some overlap here between the AppScan security platform and Page and Field Configurator. Well, that's a key difference. The AppScan security platform happens after PeopleSoft is all done with it. So that field change that wants to show it, it's not going to happen on the AppScan security platform. Big difference. Okay. So let's see. Let's try a masking scenario here. How about this one? Let's see. Let's return home, and then let's go to employee self-service. That's a good place to go. And on personal details, we see the additional information. And on additional information, I can see that the social security number is here in plain text. Interesting. I don't know the answer to this one, but there is the data privacy framework delivered by, is that Enterprise Components or People Tools? I think most of the configuration is in Enterprise Components, but it works through to query, which makes me think there must be some People Tools hooks there. That's why I get confused between those. But anyways, data privacy framework. Within the data privacy framework, the apps teams are now marking fields as confidential or personally identifiable or different restricted, putting different notations on these pieces of metadata. And so this is one. Don't you think this should be protected? I would think so. In fact, maybe it is. Maybe I just don't know enough about the apps. Yeah, I consider myself to be a tools expert, not an apps expert. And that's one of the things that I found to be really challenging as we look at some of the frameworks that the apps teams are delivering, because it seems like every one of the apps is tackling security and confidential information slightly differently. Not only that, at the module level, there seems to be differences. That's challenging. That gets to be confusing. Which one do you use? I don't know. Sometimes I'll just go for the sledgehammer. I know it's attack. Sometimes I'll just go with the sledgehammer. That's kind of what I'm doing here, going with the sledgehammer approach. Oops, wrong button. Let's go to Navigator. We want to go to Enterprise Components, Page and Field Configurator, and let's try masking what component is this? HR additional info. Awesome. Put that in here. And what kind of, oh, look at that. I already have a masking profile out there that has no fields. Is this a masking profile? It is a masking profile. Let's select our field. Which field do we want? That's a really good question. Let's look, social security number. That makes sense, right? That's what the label is. There's no field called social security number here. There's no field with a label, social security number. Let's try a trick we learned earlier. How about, derived HR NID special char. Let's try that, NID special char. There it is, national identifier. Awesome. Okay. Oh, wait, do you see it? Look at the side here. Category, classification. So they are noting personally identifiable sensitive. Oh, interesting. So the data privacy framework is in fact noting these fields as sensitive. And there's a mask profile pre-created here, national ID. Interesting. Oh, this could cause us problems. See, it depends on these fields being in the component buffer. I don't believe they are. So we're going to have to choose a different mask profile. We could go with full. Let's go with partial 4, except you could change it if you want to, and you could change the mask character. Wait, you know what? I don't want either one of those mask characters. You know what I want? I want the Unicode dot character. You seen that one? It's the password one, the little dot. You can use that. If you use event mapping with set display mask, you can use the dot. I can't use the dot here with the page and field configurator. Oh, well, at least it's something, right? It's a start. Uh-oh, what did he do wrong? He forgot to apply, didn't he? Map to portal registry. So let's do this. Which one do I want? Will it hurt to select both? I don't think so. Let's do that because I don't know. I don't know which one I want. Awesome. Okay. Now, I encourage you to check out some of Greg Wendt's sessions because I know he's going to be covering a similar solution, and I'll bet you he's going to be showing you far more that the AppScience security platform can do over this one. Let's see. Question in chat there. How do we migrate the changes for Page and Field Configurator? The answer is through, well, actually, there are two pieces. One of them would be Data Migration Workbench using the EOCC configuration data set. The other one is, and this is the one that a lot of people forget, move the service. Sorry, you don't need to move any event mapping services. It would be not the service definitions, it would be the services. Do those through Application Designer. That's basically the apply button. Map to portal registry. Click the apply button. If you just move EOCC configuration, you're going to have to come in here and press the apply button for every single one of those. If you move EOCC configuration and the App Designer project, then it's all done. You don't have to do anything else. Okay, cool. Let's go on to event mapping now. So there are situations that event mapping can't handle. Event mapping is awesome if for some of these simpler solutions, but there's some things event mapping can't do. Let me give you an example. Let's go to My System Profile. Let's see, My System Profile. And in My System Profile, we will find the instant messaging. The protocol is hard-coded there, XMPP. Anyone still use that? That's the Jabber protocol. Loved it back in the day, but today, hey, we're using Slack here, aren't we? Does Slack support XMPP? I think they canceled that, didn't they? Microsoft Teams XMPP? I don't know. Anyway, what I'm saying is that this probably isn't relevant anymore, and this is something I would probably like to remove from the page, but that would be a customization if I were to just right-click and delete, wouldn't it? You know, I'll just tell you because we don't have time to open App Designer and take a look. This is a grid, that's it. No group box, just a grid. So how could you use configuration to hide this? Well, we cannot use Page and Field Configurator because we can't hide a grid with Page and Field Configurator. We can manipulate fields. What type of fields? You know, I didn't tell you that earlier. Data entry fields are buttons. Is there anything else that might be attached to a field that we might want to manipulate? Yeah, a group box. They don't show in Page and Field Configurator, at least not yet today. Who knows, maybe that's coming in the future. But what about this grid here? Let's talk about this one really quickly. So let's do this. The component name is user-main self. Let's go ahead and configure quickly event mapping against user-main self. So let's see, first thing I need to do with event mapping is I need to investigate the transaction. Okay, I've done that in advance. I've investigated, I found the name of the row set. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Application Designer, open, component, user-main self. Let's drill through to the page. Let's find the primary record. Look at this, a very simple, old style classic page. And I can see, what's the base record here? MCF user IMCFG. Okay, I'm guessing that's it. Let's go ahead and open Notepad. And Notepad, where are you? Set that aside so we can refer to it later. Here's what I want to do. Get row set, scroll dot hide all rows. That's what I want to do. But I want to do that as a configuration rather than a customization, so I'm going to use event mapping. So question, when should you use, oh, and by the way, so step 1, investigate the transaction. Step 2, create the application class. Step 3, create a service definition. Step 4 is to configure the service definition. So we're on to step 2 now, create the application package and class. What should we name our package? You know, that's a really good question. One of the things that, the reason for event mapping is to try to solve lifecycle management issues, right? Allow us to stay current, give us that SaaS-like experience through a perpetual licensed solution so that we're always current, because that's one of the values of cloud, isn't it? SaaS, always current. Well, yeah, PeopleSoft can be always current too. It's just on us to make sure that that happens. Or our managed services provider, our hosting provider. let's see, let's save this. So one of the challenges with event mapping, even though it's designed to solve lifecycle management issues to allow us to uptake Oracle solutions faster, one of the challenges with it is finding which components actually use event mapping so we can do an analysis later. So we've come up with a naming convention. Let's see, this is the Innovation Summit. So let's go with IS, and let's go with user mate self EVT. So the naming convention that I've come up with is all event mapping people code, or I've come up with, many of us in the community have come up with this. We're going to, in this case, using this convention, what we're going to do is place all event mapping for this component in one application package. The application package will have the same name as the component with our site-specific prefix so we can find it, and EVT at the end to say, oh, this is for event mapping. Then we'll say, okay, now what object, event mapping, what objects events do we want? Is it a component event such as pre-build or post-build? Is it a record object? Is it a page? This case, I'm going to use page. What's the name of our page? It is going to be in the properties here. We can double click, grab that, and then insert a sub package, and then a class, page activate. So by building out a structure, it becomes very obvious to anyone who comes in and, hey, that's the question first. Hey, is there any event mapping against this? I don't know. Let's see if we can find an application package with this name. Awesome, there it is. Oh, these are the objects that we're mapping against, and these are the events. Okay, cool. So next thing we need is the people code for event mapping. And what we've done is we put together a GitHub repo with your typical people code templates. And let's see, here's one for event mapping. So let's go to raw and grab the text for that. And let's paste it here into our application class viewer. I've got a little note here. Code goes here. Awesome. So let's just grab our code. And there it is. Okay, save. I like it. It's saved. Oh, I didn't show you this. There's a really cool thing here App Designer just did. I want to point it out to you. Okay, the template that I copied in said, the name of the class is change class name to event name. That's a pointer for you, by the way. That's a tip. You're supposed to change that name. Notice I didn't put it in brackets though. I didn't force you to change it. Why? Because App Designer will do it for us. I didn't change the name here. As soon as you press the save button, App Designer will automatically rename the class to the same as our structure. That's awesome. Thank you, PeopleTools, for doing that for us. Okay, well, let's see. So next thing, so this step 2. Step 3, define the service definition. Let's do that. So let's repurpose this window onto PeopleTools and portal, related content service, define related content service, add a new value. Kind of interesting, isn't it, that event mapping would be part of related content? Why? I don't know. I did ask, though. I did ask, why is it part of related content? I'm not understanding how it's related. Apparently, all of the code necessary to make event mapping work was already part of, or most of it was already there. So they just had to tie into related content. Cool, huh? What are we doing here? We're hiding IM. So this is part of the user profile. So we got to go cryptic here. We only have a few characters. IS, Innovation Summit, user profile, hide IM. I like it. Okay, and service name, user prof hide IM. Oh, cool, there were enough characters there. Awesome. You still have to be cryptic even with the name because it's still a little bit on the short side. So IS user mate self. That's the one. Okay, user self-service, class name, page activate. And let's save this. Looks good. And then let's go ahead and map to the component event. So I'm going to go to event mapping, and then let's see, let's find it. Map application classes to component events. It is my system profile. And then we're going to do page activate here. Page level event mapping. There we go. Page, it is the user self-service page, the service ID. I called it IS for Innovation Summit. Oh, that's fun. IS, UP. Okay, there we go. And sequence number doesn't matter. Event mapping parameter, that's a new feature of 858 that allows you to use the same method, the same class for a variety of different services. I kind of like the idea of the flexibility for reuse there. I don't know what it buys us though. Because see, what you would have then is you would have a class that says evaluate parameter coming in. When parameter equals this, do that. Or when parameter equals that, do the other thing. Like I said, I don't quite know the value that's buying us because application classes already allow you to do that. You wouldn't receive a parameter. What you would do is create a base class, and then you'd have another class that calls that base class, passing in the appropriate parameters. So you just create a class placeholder. I don't know. It's there. It's a feature. It's just kind of one of those things I thought, we were able to do that before. Thanks for giving me another option. It's just basically just another way to do the same thing. Pre or post processing. Do I want my code to run before Oracle's or after Oracle's code? I'm hiding something here. I want it to run after. Save. Okay, my system profile, let's refresh, and woohoo, my IAM is gone. That's awesome, isn't it? So question that a lot of people ask is, should I use event mapping or page and field configurator? Well, Page and Field Configurator is a subset of event mapping. Event mapping can do everything Page and Field Configurator can do and a whole lot more. So why would I use Page and Field Configurator? That's a good question. In fact, there are customers who've decided we're not going to. I would say my default, my recommendation, I prefer to reach for Page and Field Configurator first. And then if I find something I can't do, I go to event mapping. Why? Because Page and Field Configurator is defined for the functional user. So the functional user can create the configurations. They don't have to depend on me. Me being the bottleneck, development being the bottleneck. Instead, we can open it up and have what we call the citizen developers, as Oracle likes to call them, the citizen developer, with the low code or no code interface. Very much SaaS-like. But me developer would do event mapping all the time. Why? Because I know that I can communicate more effectively in event mapping. Have you looked at Page and Field Configurator? I find it confusing. It gets the job done. Would I do it differently? I mean, if I were the designer of Page and Field Configurator, would I have done it differently? You know what my dream would be? Where they would show you the page and you would take the selector button and you would select and then you would configure it. That would be so awesome. Otherwise, we're just configuring metadata, and it is a little bit on the confusing side. Then you start adding in all of the criteria and everything. Oh man, my head starts to spin. But functional users can work with it. And if functional users can write AWE selection criteria, that's the term I'm looking for, AWE criteria and process definitions, then they can do this as well. So I'm fully confident in that. I know lots of functional people who are working quite well off of Page and Field Configurator. I just know as a developer that the code that I write can communicate much more effectively and clearly. And oh, by the way, when I look at the trace file, it will actually make sense. The Page and Field Configurator trace file, not so much. Because when I am hiding a field, like I'm doing right here, hey, why is the grid gone? Well, let's trace it, let's find out. Oh, look at that. In the trace file, it says get row set, MCF hide all rows. Well, there you go. That's why it's hidden. Yes. Okay, let's see. One other, let's see, looking at the time, we don't have time because I want to cover a lot more. This gives you a taste of event mapping. Another one that I like to show that we'll save, I'll tell you about, and then I'll tell you why I like to talk about it. Let's see, it is under payroll, direct deposit, and the print options right here. I like to take the print options away. Why? Well, because most organizations do, they say if you want a copy of your pay stub, log into PeopleSoft and look at your pay stub. Having this option here, the radio button, the switch to choose whether or not I want my organization to send me a pay statement, it's kind of misleading, especially if we're not going to do that. So I'd like to see it go away. How would you do that? Well, you could right-click in App Designer and delete it, right? No, that would be a customization. We want to do configuration alternatives. Can you use Page and Field Configurator for it? No, because it's a group box. I mean, actually, yes. Well, maybe. That was a clear answer there, Jim. Can you give us a few more of those? The radio button itself, I think I haven't even checked. I don't want to check. I don't have any reason to check. So that's why I said maybe. The radio button itself might be configurable through Page and Field Configurator. The print option group box around it is not. Why? Because it's a group box and group boxes do not show in the list of fields. Oh, that's something that we should see as a future update. I hope that's something I would like to see as a future update to Page and Field Configurator. So then we could do the entire thing in Page and Field Configurator and not have to use event mapping in PeopleCode. While we're here looking at direct deposit, why don't we use this to launch into Dropzones? By the way, let's see if there are any questions on event mapping before I continue. Let's see, questions in chat. If all the fields in the grid are hidden and the grid is set to reformat for hidden fields, does the grid disappear? Good question. I can't say as I've tried that. If the grid is set to reformat for hidden fields, I don't know if you would have to make that change. And again, I don't want to make any changes to fields. This is simple. The row set.hide all rows automatically hides the grid. That's what I went with, but you're right, there might be another way. Let's see. If we hide a field on a particular page, but if a user has admin privileges to that page, will the person still see the hidden field? Awesome question. Okay, I happen to be logged in as user PS. PS is a PeopleSoft super user with full access to every page regardless of what security says. Page and Field Configurator has nothing to do with the security module. Page and Field Configurator uses PeopleCode to do record.field.visible equals false. And it looks at your role membership if you choose to use role membership as your criteria. It'll use users as criteria if you choose to use users, but don't do that. Go with roles all the time. So if a user is a super user, system administrator, Page and Field Configurator wins every time because Page and Field Configurator is not using the security module to determine whether or not. So there's no special secret role or something you can add that will give you all power access to everything like there is in regular PeopleSoft security. Good question. How to map to components and pages without direct navigation. Oh, I love that. That's a great question. The answer is that the Page and Field Configurator uses event mapping. And event mapping applies to content references, not components. A content reference is a menu component combination. Let me give you an example. Let's see, how about a new window? And let's return home. And I don't know. See all these dynamic tiles here? Not all of them, but a lot of them, especially if we go to, let's see, personal details. I haven't checked. I'm guessing that every single one of these is a tile wizard-based tile. They'll use application classes most likely. That's been the new thing that PeopleSoft has been delivering. Most tiles today use app classes and tile wizard. Can you use Page and Field Configurator or event mapping? Now let's set Page and Field Configurator aside because Page and Field Configurator is confined by event mapping. Can you use event mapping on these? Absolutely. How? You have to create a content reference. Remember, event mapping applies to content reference. So when you say in your question, how do you map to components without direct navigation? Basically what you're asking is, how do you map to components that do not have content references? You create a content reference. Would that be a customization? No. Oracle doesn't know about it. They don't care about it. They're not going to touch it. What's a content reference? A menu component combination. That's what PeopleSoft is looking for. In fact, if you look at my URL up here, you notice it has a menu and it has a component. So what PeopleSoft does is it looks at PSPRSMDefn, the last column PSPRSMDefn, portal URI seg. It finds a match. When it finds a match, it goes across to the content reference. It finds a match based on this URL fragment here. That's how PeopleSoft applies event mapping. No content reference, create one. Oh, what about this one? What about addresses? How would you map to addresses? Oh, I've got a better one. How would you map to direct deposit? That's a really good question because direct deposit is over here, and this is why I love showing direct deposit so much. Direct deposit is over here under self-service, payroll and comp, direct deposit. Click on it, and it's going to take me to direct deposit. Or did it? It took me to the fluid version. But the navigation was the classic component. So if you were to do event mapping against the classic navigation, you would be event mapping against the classic component, not the fluid component. So this may be another answer to that exact same question. It really all depends on what direction we were taking from that. If the question was, how do you create event mapping against something that has no content reference? I answered that. How do you create event mapping against something that I don't know the navigation to? That's another question. That's this one. That's this one. This has a content reference. What's the navigation to get here? I don't know. How do you find it? One of my other favorite tools. Let's go to Enterprise Components. Down. Enterprise Components. And down all the way at the bottom here, find object navigation. We'll give it the name of our component, and it will say, these are all of the content references that PeopleSoft says, these are all the content references I found for that component. Now this one right here, it's a nav collection, doesn't count. This one right here, this one right here, P&A fluid components, that's the real one. What is this one down here? I don't know, it's an imposter. Seriously, I don't know. What I do know, I have a feeling that it's one of those that has additional attributes, X equals Y type thing, just to fake the portal registry. Why did they do that? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if, never mind. Some things are better left unsaid. What I found is that when I apply event mapping to this one, it automatically applies to this one as well, which makes me think that they're the same menu component combination, just that there's some additional attribute in there that says like a tile equals Y or something that is making that one different. I don't know. Let's see, the same class used over a variety of services coming with 858. That's just class inheritance, object-oriented programming. Exactly. Which is why I kind of look at it like, well, thanks for the feature, but already had that. And it's kind of one of those things, maybe somebody looks and goes, oh, yeah, you're right. Didn't think of that. Somebody asked for it. They gave it to us. Thank you. Appreciate it. Can you show versus hide information based on security role? I pointed that out. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into great detail on that, but basically you would just select in the sequence, and then you would say header level, sequence level, and then you just assign, hey, this is the configuration for this particular role. Roles are applied on or sequences are applied on a first match wins. So what you want is your tightest roles listed first in sequence numbers, and your least restrictive listed last. Let's see, can we trace Page and Field Configurator and event mapping? Yes. But Page and Field Configurator will say, for each field in generic PeopleSoft record, do this. That tells me nothing. And that's one of the reasons I like event mapping over Page and Field Configurator, because with event mapping, I will see record.field.visible equals false, the exact record that I want to see. This will be in the people code, in the trace. It will say, get row set. Oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. That's what I'll say to myself. That's exactly what I was looking for. Hey, you want to make the trace even easier to find? Do this, local string and comment equals that in sum, innovation summit, whatever your site specific prefix happens to be, ABC123, whatever it is, put that in there. And then you can open your trace file and say, Control F, INN_SUMM, go right to the line. You can do that in an event mapping. You can't do that in Page and Field Configurator because you're not writing code in Page and Field Configurator. Let's see. I've tried radio buttons and group boxes. Both are not available in PFC. Thanks for the radio buttons thing. I did not know about that one. And agree with me, a developer should be using event mapping over PFC. So here's the thing. As a developer, I prefer event mapping. But I also know that a functional person might come to me and say, hey, can you make these changes? I'm like, yes, awesome, done. Did it in Page and Field Configurator. Why? So that then, if they want to later, they can say, oh, I want to alter that a little bit. Well, now they can alter it because I did it in Page and Field Configurator. If I do an event mapping, it still comes back to me every time on the request. So I might choose Page and Field Configurator even though I'm a developer. Let's see. CIs and event mapping. Awesome. Great question. Yes, component interfaces do work with event mapping. The way that they work is, well, they only work. Here, let me open one for you. Open component interface. Oops. CI personal data. This is an Oracle delivered component interface. And the reason I'm bringing this one up is because this one will not work with event mapping. Why? Oh, no. I should have picked a smaller component interface. Let's look at another question while we wait for that. Can I add criteria to make a field conditionally disabled? Yes. You can do it based on the component buffer. You can do it based on security. Isn't the fluid structure and content just a link to other pages? No. It might be. But There's nothing special about fluid structure and content. Just kidding. Oracle determines what home pages to show and what tiles are available based on fluid structure and content, but otherwise it's exactly like any other portal registry structure, which may be CREF links or it may be exact CREFs. It really depends. You'll find both in there. Let's see, let's look here and you see the menu name. Menu name. Did you know that component interfaces could have a menu? That's the thing. Remember, event mapping applies to menu component combinations, or should I say they apply to CREFs, which are menu component combinations. And you probably know, because you've probably tried this before. You probably tried creating a content reference that was a duplicate of another one, not by ID, by menu component combination. And PeopleSoft will tell you there's already a content reference with that menu component combination because CREFs are unique by menu and component combination. So if you want to use a CI with event mapping, and you do, if you want to use a CI with Page and Field Configurator, and you do, then you will specify a menu name on your CIs. This is an Oracle delivered CI. If I were to change this, that would be a customization. Is it worth it? Maybe. I don't know. That's on you. Can Page Field Configurator be used within work centers? Absolutely. Any idea why Oracle does not allow PFC security by permissionless in addition to role? No, in fact, they just started doing role. I don't know on that one. Yeah, I'm not even gonna guess. Okay, cool. So let's do some drop zones. Here's what I want to do. Let's see. Let's look at, and we've got about 12 minutes left in this session. A ton of content here. I'd love to share more with you guys. You're always welcome into one of our one-day webinars. We do those quarterly, as well as, of course, our training sessions. Check out our website. You'll find a ton of training classes out there, from integration tools all the way through to just plain old People Tools. We're running a People Tools boot camp, in fact, next month. If you know somebody that's new to People Tools, wants to get to know App Engine, Integration Broker, SQR, and People Code, etc. Wow, Jim, all of that in 1 week? I didn't say we're making them experts in 1 week. Sometimes I find that, and this happened to me, when I first started working with the PeopleSoft applications, I think I went to about 2 months solid of People Tools training. At the end, my head was, well, I was about to say my head was full, but actually it wasn't, because I got back and I thought, now, how do you do that again? Right? Because there's just so much to learn all at once. So instead we thought is, hey, let's introduce people to different topics so they can hit the ground running and do something with it, rather than overloading them with so much information they don't know how to get started. So that's what we do in our People Tools Bootcamp. Anyway, on to drop zones. So let's take a look at personal details here, any personal details page. And you'll notice at the top there, there's the image. There's information about me as the logged in user. I'm always embarrassed when they show me my picture. I'm like, I already know what I look like. And really, I didn't like that picture. I told the manager that they shouldn't keep that picture, but well, there it is, right? Let's look at direct deposit. Oh, whew, doesn't have a picture of me, but hey, at least we should be showing the name because, I might forget what my name is. Anyway, this is one of the few self-service pages I've seen that does not tell me who I am. We should fix that. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and configure a drop zone. So first thing we need to do is investigate the transaction. Just like event mapping, investigate the transaction. I know we might want to think of a lot of these things as black boxes. Well, we just can't. So let's see. Let's open the component and let's look at the transaction first. Component, there's a page. No drop zones. How do I know that? Actually, there are no fields here either. Weird. How do you get from this down here in App Designer to that? Great question. I'd love to show you how. We have a Fluid class coming up. No, seriously, we do go through this in Fluid. Anyways, view definition. And on the subpage here, we can see, there it is, DZ top of page, PTERC subpage tab. Every drop zone, well, here, first thing, what are drop zones? Drop zones allow us to insert content into Oracle delivered pages. Forgive me, I'm looking at the time here, thinking 10 minutes left. I want to make sure I get you into a drop zone at least. Drop zones allow us to insert content into Oracle delivered pages at runtime. We are injecting content into a page at runtime. For that to work, Oracle has to deliver placeholders on their pages. Now there are roughly 600 pages in there are roughly 600 Fluid components in HR. And there are about 500 to 600 pages in HR that includes drop zones. So what we can tell then is that Oracle has gone back through all Fluid components. By the way, Dropzones appeared in 857. Oracle went through all of their Fluid components in 857 and littered them with Dropzones. And that's what we see here, PTERC subpage stub. You want to find out how many Dropzones or where those Dropzones are located. You want to get a quick report. View definition and choose Edit, Find Definition References. That'll give you a whole list of every single page that includes PTERC subpage stub, which would then be every page that includes a Dropzone. What about Classic? C858 gives us Dropzones in Classic. How many pages has Oracle delivered with Classic Dropzones? That's a fantastic question. I brought this up last year at the Reconnect conference. And what I found is I think there were 5. Wow, only 5? Maybe we need to wait for a future PUM. No. If we make it more, but not a lot more. Why? See, I had that conversation with product strategy because I was curious as well. And here was their answer. It's a really good answer. So I asked, for example, I said, why not job data? Job data is one of the most important components in the HR system. And I know customers want to add custom fields to job data. And Oracle said, we're not putting Dropzones in classic job data. I said, oh, I'm sad. And they said, because we replaced classic job data with fluid job data. And fluid job data is littered with Dropzones. So what they're doing is giving us Dropzones on classic components that are what you might call control tables, like the location table, setup components that will likely stay classic for, I don't know, ever. And then the components that they're actively working on migrating to fluid, they're not wasting time putting Dropzones in the classic because they're actively working on converting those to fluid with Dropzones. That makes sense. That's investment dollars well spent. Okay, so we found a Dropzone. It's at the top of the page. Let's go ahead and create a new subpage to put, a new subpage to put in. Oh, this is gonna be fun. How many of these are about to time out? That's the awesome thing about Fluid, right? Is that you now have to go through all the tabs looking for timeouts. So we're gonna create a new subpage here for Fluid. We'll use the PSL simple SBP. And let's see, let's call this, how about IS Ample HDR SBF, subpage fluid, SBF. Do you also save a copy of the people code? Oh, great question. What do you think? No, don't save a copy of the people code. Why not? Because it's a subpage and page activate doesn't trigger on subpages. So there's really no point. I'll change the page type to subpage, click the OK button. And then let's see, let's just go ahead and start adding some content. How about a field here? Edit box, let's do this as personal data name underscore display. That'll give us the name of the logged in user. Let's go with label none. Let's go with use display only. Awesome, super simple, right? And then let's just configure it in. So let's see, assign event mapping. It's going to be a similar location. It's under portal. Let's see, People Tools portal, configure Dropzones. Looking at the time there's about 6 minutes left. I'll definitely get through this and I'll be able to introduce you to AE action plugins. They're so simple, they almost don't need a lot of explanation. Let's see, this is going to be component PYIC dir dep FL. How do I know that? I did a Control J in advance on direct deposit, or I looked at the URL, or a number of ways. I found the component name, search, find the component, and let's see what? Wow. There are a dozen Dropzones in this component? Hold on. How many do you see here? 2, okay. And none here. And there's only 1 page of the component. How do we get from 2 to 12? That's a really good question. Let me show you. There's a secondary page here. The secondary page has Dropzones. And let's see, the subpage has a secondary page. It has Dropzones. And the secondary page has secondary pages, and it has Dropzones. Okay, now which Dropzones do we see here? I see the ones for PYIC dir dep FL. I'm actually not working with FL, I'm working with SBF. Where are the Dropzones for SBF? You don't see Dropzones for subpages. Subpages can contain Dropzones, and subpages contain subpages that contain Dropzones. This is funny. Dropzones can contain Dropzones. Okay, would you do that? Great question. Would you ever add Dropzones to your own components, your own content? Well, the question is, do you want to make your own components configurable? If you own them, no. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Just add the content yourself. What if you are a plugin or bolt-on reseller like Smart ERP or PS Web Solutions or Gideon Taylor? Yeah, they should have drop zones, I think, so that we can configure their content. I think that's an awesome idea. Okay, so PYIC DIRDEP FL number 4, that's the one we want. Let's select our drop zone. Oh, let's just do it the easy way. This is IS EMP header SBF. Awesome, I like it. It shows because it's both fluid and a subpage. We're at 4 minutes left. Press the refresh button. Oh, there it is. What? Can we do better? Yeah, we can. Let me show you something here. So notice that Betty Lockerty is centered, isn't it? No, it's not. It's not centered. It looks centered though, doesn't it? Why? Because 33% of the entire row there, reserved for Betty Lockerty, 33% is going to the label. Yeah, the label I turned off. Exactly. Exactly. So let's see. Let's find our page here again. If we want PeopleSoft to stop reserving space, we will use the style class PSC_label-none. This is another one of the things we go through in great detail in our Fluid series is the style classes. Awesome, there it is. But I think we can do a little bit better. How about we move it into the page header? So one of the things we talk about in our Fluid 2 class is special group box types. One of those group box types is the custom header bottom. So group box type, custom header bottom. This is one of those where the label is going to be visible. So we'll clear the label down to about 3 minutes here. I know I'm watching the clock because I want to make sure I get you as much information as I can, but I don't waste your time and go over time. I want to honor your time. We're going to use the style class here, PS apps page header. That's going to give us a nice little border and everything. The other thing it's going to do is allow us to use special classes here on the content inside the page header, such as PSC_data-primary. Okay, now if we had time, I'd go on and continue this and I would add in the photo. Oops, I forgot to mark this as a group box type of layout only. That's how you know this is live. I did that on purpose, so you wouldn't think this was recorded. Awesome, there it is, Betty Lockerty. Cool, okay, so we have about 3 minutes left. Let's see, do we have any questions before I go on? Will Campus Solutions support drop zones? That's a fantastic question. Today, I have not seen any drop zones in the campus content. I don't know. Should they? Absolutely. What does that require? It requires the Oracle Apps team, Campus Solutions team to circle back to the Campus Solutions content and litter those Fluid pages with drop zones. I'm waiting. Okay, let's see. Will you provide slides for this presentation? I would love to. There are 4 of them. You know what they look like? This. Basically, it becomes a commercial if I give you the slides. There's something way better than slides that's coming. It's the recording. That's what we're giving you. Find object navigation. Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. All right, let's see. With 30 seconds left, let me talk about AE Action plugins. What are they? So let's say that you have an Oracle delivered App Engine program. We do. Let me open one here really quick. It is App Engine program. Oh, PTPG. This is the one for Pivot Grid notifications for the notifications and alerts. And we can see that it has SQL steps and people code steps. So AE Action plugins allow you to create a new App Engine program, give it a name, JSM, let's see, IS test 123, and then you insert an action. They call them AE Action plugins. SQL, people code, it doesn't matter. Save it, throw your SQL in there, and then using an online page, you configure, you say, I want to run my people code before this SQL. I want to run my people code after this SQL. I want to run my people code in place of this SQL. That one scares me. That one scares me. Why? Because here's what I see people doing. I see them opening the Oracle delivered SQL and saying, oh, we need to change this value right here. We want it to always run as user PS. That's a customization, isn't it? So here's what I see people doing. Creating an AE Action plugin, copying this, pasting it into their AE Action plugin, turning off the Oracle delivered step and using theirs instead. You haven't customized now, have you? You've replaced. But here's the thing. Oracle's going to make changes to their SQL. And as they make changes to their SQL, you have no compare. You don't even know. How would you even know that they made changes? There's nothing that's going to tell you because Oracle did a compare. Change, no asterisk, and said everything's good, slam it into production. And your AE Action plugin continues to run, but running with an older version of Oracle's code. I actually want a compare report when I do something like this. I want the compare report to say, hey, you've changed this. Is it still relevant? That's what I want. Anyway, I know time-wise, I'm a minute over. I just want to show you the configuration page. One of the things with the configuration page, have you ever wanted to run 2 people code, 3, 5 people code actions in the same step? You can't do that in App Engine, can you? Well, if there's already one there, we'll call it a seed. Then the answer is yes, you can. You can do that through the AE action plugins, PTPG. All you have to do is just keep inserting steps. Let's see, enabled, and I want to map against main, step 01, action SQL. My plugin, IS test, 1, 2, 3, which section? Main, did you notice I did not set this to be a library? I just set it to be it's just a plain old App Engine plugin, a plain old App Engine. Isn't that wild? Before, after, or replace. Okay, let's see. Question, and then we're gonna have to end the session. Are the styles covered in the basic class or the advanced class? That's a great question. We start in our Fluid 1 class with a couple of them, like a PSC primary and a PSC column -3, PSC list link menu. Those are a handful. We cover a handful in Fluid 1. Then we go nuts with them in Fluid 2, because I believe to be successful in Fluid, you really need to have a good grasp of the 107-page Oracle document showing you all of the style classes available. And so we cover a great deal of those in our Fluid 2 class. With that, I just want to leave you with how you can find us. You can find us on all the major social networks. Here are the links. We look forward to seeing you in a future class. We look forward to seeing you in a future session, like tomorrow, when we go through Fluid and tips and tricks with Fluid. But with that, I want to turn it back over to Scott to close us out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jim. Great session. Always appreciate it. I hope everybody found it as insightful as we did. And of course, Jim is going to be back tomorrow, so keep an eye out for the schedule. Before we close things out, I just wanted to bring attention to a few sessions that we have coming up later today. If anybody is working on any PeopleSoft identity and access management projects, that session is coming up next with modernizing PeopleSoft IAM. We'll be talking about the top 10 configuration security risks in a PeopleSoft environment. So a little bit different take on the data security risks session that Greg did. This is actually going to be solely focused on configuration security risks with our good friends at Integrity. And then we're going to close out the evening, afternoon, depending on where you're at, with achieving PeopleSoft accessibility, going beyond overlays and widgets. So if you have any accessibility projects coming up, that is going to be a session you will not want to miss. Would be remiss if I didn't mention that there is a PSFT Slack channel. I unfortunately had the link wrong my first attempt. It is correct now in the chat. If you were to go find it, there's some cool conversations going on in there. Anything from a networking perspective to job openings, all kinds of good stuff. So I would go check that out. It is at psftsummit.slack.com. And you can obviously follow Apsian on LinkedIn or Twitter because we'll be announcing new sessions and new summits, coming up later in the year. And keep your eye out on Friday for our email that has our survey in it for these sessions that you've been a part of. We would love to get your feedback on them as we plan the next summit. So until then, Jim, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. And for everyone else, we'll see you in Modernizing PeopleSoft IAM here in about 10 minutes. Stick around.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody. Bye.